Hey, it's Beef, and this is an update on the Twitch Plays Arknights project that I've been running on my channel. If you don't know what it is, basically it's Arknights being controlled by Twitch chat completely and independently without any interference from me, the streamer. As an example here, you can see the game here. It is currently paused with the chat on the right side, and in a moment we'll see a command input and Siege was deployed. So this was done by Twitch chat alone without any interference from me. I didn't do anything. They just put in the commands and the script did the work. So the reason why I am making an update on this now is because I don't think I'll be able to continue running this on my channel. I did say in a previous update that I wanted to run this during my stream downtimes, but due to a bunch of commitments and just content creation like being overloaded, and there's a lot of things on my plate right now, it's just something I don't want to have to worry about like added on. In short, basically. So I'll be sharing this script, how to install it, how to edit it, how to use it, basically everything you need to know about it to the Arknights community, because I believe that this is very beneficial to content creators or streamers, as just like a little tool to use every now and then. I don't expect someone to be running this 24/7 because it is breakable in a sense that malicious users could just quit the game and you would have no way of getting back in, which is a thing I'll touch on later. But for now, I'll just be going through a tutorial on how to set this up. Alright, let's get started. So first, you're going to go down in the description below and you're going to download this folder. It's on my Google Drive, completely safe. And if you're doubting, just fire scan it and you'll be good to go. So in this folder, you have everything you need for this script to set it up, to install, and yeah. So first folder you're going to go into is the Python Sublime AHK. And this basically has everything you need to install. So first thing you're going to do is install Python. So just launch this. And I already have it installed, but you'll go through the installation process. And yeah, so Python will be the coding language for our script. Next, we will install Sublime Text. Sublime Text will just be our script editor for Python. And lastly, we'll need AutoHotkey. And AutoHotkey basically allows this script to control your keyboard inputs and mouse inputs. Again, I already have it installed, but for you, you will go through an installation process. Now, once all three of those things are installed, we're going to go ahead and launch Sublime Text. It may say there's a new version, but we don't need one right now, so you can go ahead and cancel. First thing we're going to do is go up to Tools and go to Build System. And you'll notice that there is a bunch of languages here, including Python. However, we won't be using this build system. Instead, go to Preferences, Browse Packages, go into the User folder, and you'll see pretty much an empty folder with just this settings. Go back to the package, and this Python 3.10 Sublime build. We're going to copy this and paste it into here. Then we're going to drag this into our Sublime Text so that we can edit it. And then you want to make sure that this path over here in the very top is the path to your Python program. So usually you're just going to have to change this to your username. So if you want to double check, what you can do is go to your PC, go to your drive, go to users, and then this will be the name of your user. If you want to go even further to double check everything else, you can go into your user. Make sure that you have hidden items checked here in your view. Then you go to App Data, Local, scroll down all the way to Programs, Python. Python 3.10 is the one we're using. And then Python exe. So you can just copy the path over here, paste it. And another thing you're going to make sure when you do this is that you need to replace all this / with backslashes. Okay, once you're done with that, you can save it, Control S, or if you're a boomer, go here and save, and then you can close that. So now under tools, if we go back to build system, you'll see Python 3.10. So this is the build we just made. Go ahead and select that. And now we can go back and open up the script. So this is the script. There is a lot here, and I'm not going to explain everything for setting it up because that would take too long, and I'll touch on some important bits later. But for now, to set things up, first, you're actually going to need to install the AHK plugin for Python. So to do that, open up your command search, whatever you want to call it, and open up command prompt. It does not have to be run as administrator. Just run it as normal. And then you're going to type in pip install AHK. Now I already have it installed, so it's saying that I already have it. And most of the time this will work just fine. However, on the off chance that it says that it doesn't identify pip as like a command or program, what you have to do is you have to manually navigate to the folder that you want to install it to. So again, from here, right here where your Python is installed, you go into the scripts, and then you copy this directory right here, do cd followed by space, and paste that in, and you'll see that we're now in this folder. Then from here, you'll do pip install AHK. And if that doesn't work, then probably just message me on Discord or something, because this should work. But if it doesn't, then just message me in private. Okay, the next thing you're going to need is your Twitch OAuth code. And this basically allows the script to use your account to send messages or monitor the chat. So you'll have to go to our new browser window, paste this in. Fair warning, if you are a streamer, which you likely are, or a content creator, and you're setting this up, this is a warning that you should not be setting this up on stream, or if people are watching that you don't trust, because this token allows anyone with it to impersonate your account, your Twitch account. So just be warned. So here you click connect, and you'll get a code to log into the chat. Copy the entire code, all of it. Go back to the script and paste it in between the quotation marks. Next is your channel and the owner, which is basically should be you. Put exactly what your Twitch username is, and be wary of the case sensitivity. So my username on Twitch does not have a capital S, so if I did put a capital S, the script would not be able to identify my account. All right, so basically that's it for setting it all up. So to run it, you'll go into your tools and you can click build here, or you see the shortcut is Control B. So if you do Control B, on the bottom you'll see the script running. And if you go to my chat as a confirmation message, as you can see, the bot has the script has impersonated my account and has said AK controller is ready to receive orders. Now, I already know what the commands are, but if you're unfamiliar, there is an image file in the package that would familiarize you with what the commands are and what they do. But for an example here, I'm going to move the mouse to a certain grid, let's say G7, and you'll see the mouse move. That was not me moving it. And if we want to do multiple commands, we can do maybe A5, H5, and we'll see the mouse do that, as you can see there. So that will help you verify that this is indeed working. And you're pretty much set from there. You're ready to go. And whenever you want to end the script, just go ahead to go to tools and cancel build, or the shortcut is there as well, Control break. And you'll see there, canceled. So a few things to watch out for is screen resolution. So the grid system works off pixel coordinates on your screen, X, Y. My monitor is 1920 by 1080. And I have not tested this script with any other resolution monitor. So it's quite likely that if you have a monitor that is not exactly those dimensions mentioned earlier, that the grid system may not work. If you want to find out how to fix it, if you really want to fix it because you're using a different resolution monitor, do message me. I can teach you if you're not aware of how it works. Another thing is emulator hotkeys. So if you can see these three commands here, unlike the rest where it uses mouse movements, see mouse move or key presses with the mouse, these key presses actually press down buttons or keys on your keyboard. So if a user were to type P, it would press X down on the keyboard. Now, usually this wouldn't actually do anything. However, if your emulator has the option of adding hotkeys to click on certain areas on the screen like BlueStacks does, this basically allows users to hit commonly used keys more easily. So instead of having to move the mouse to a certain place and then clicking, they can just use this hotkey. So do double check that your emulator, if you're not using BlueStacks, does have this feature. I'm pretty sure that these are the default keys for BlueStacks. Okay, the last thing to watch out for is breakability. So because this entire script allows a user or Twitch chatter to basically control your mouse and click on anywhere on the screen, it's very possible that if you're running Arknights during any event where there are clickable banners or links, that they can click on those links and it would leave the game. So do watch out for that. Another thing is they can also log out of the account, which is more easily done through the settings menu. That's entirely possible too. And if they do end up closing the game or logging out of the account, there's not much they can do to log back in, just because they don't actually have access to a virtual keyboard or a physical keyboard. So to overcome that, I've only really been able to come up with one solution, and it's a remote shutdown of the stream. So what you see here is an abort command. So we're looking for the command abort, but we're also looking for it being sent by a certain user. So our users here are basically everyone who's modded on my channel. So this command would only go through if it was sent by one of these people. And all it does is presses down this end key, which is my hotkey for ending stream on OBS. So you might want to change it to something that you actually won't use, or whatever your hotkey is. If you're not sure how to do that, message me again on Discord. But this is just your extreme solution to shutting down the stream if a malicious user is deciding to do some sus shit. Yeah. I promise not to go too deep into the nerd shit, but I did a little bit there about the abort command because I think it's pretty important. But now I'm gonna go even deeper, and you feel free to skip ahead. This may not be important for you, but if you plan on changing up the script or adding your own additions, this is important for you. So this is all the nerd shit on how this entire script actually works. So to understand how this works, first we need to understand how this script actually takes in the messages and understands what it's supposed to be. Starting with our command filter. So you'll notice we have a variable here called the command filter, and it is set to AKC. If you saw earlier during my little chat test, you noticed that I put AKC at the start of every message. If you want to see what would happen without the AKC, if we just did G7, nothing would happen. Okay, so the reason we have a command filter here is to basically filter out the chat between actual commands and just regular chat messages. And the issue we were facing before this solution was that this script would try to compute every single message being sent, and it would effectively slow down the entire script, meaning that there would be even more delay between actual commands and other people's actual commands. So delay between commands, basically. So what happens here is we take the message from Twitch and remove all the encoding that Twitch does by splitting through the colons. And then here we split the message further from the spacebars. So if you notice here, each command was split by a spacebar. So every time there's a spacebar, we split it and we put it into a list. And I'm going to assume you know a little bit about coding if you're listening to this nerd shit, but you know what a list is. And basically it's just a queue. And we put this into a temporary queue at first. So in this temporary queue, we're only really checking for one thing. And we want to check that the first command in this list is equal to the command filter. If it's not, like in this if statement here, then all we do is just delete the entire queue or the temporary queue. If it is, we extend the queue by adding the temporary onto it. So what this does is it actually allows multiple people to queue commands without getting in the way of each other. So if one person were to queue a bunch of commands and another person were to queue another bunch of commands, it would do the first person's commands first and then the second person's commands next, as long as the command filter is there. So now with those commands in the queue, what we do next is we compare each command with our list. And if it doesn't exist, it basically gets passed by. So if there was a W1, it would wait for 1 second. If there was an A1, it would move to that grid. However, if there was something like some garbage like STL, which is nothing, it would just skip it. In the case of AHK being in the first command, denoting that the entire line is a script or for commands, then it would just get skipped and it would continue doing everything past that. So if a user makes an error in their script, just a slight error, it will still continue doing everything past that. Okay, next you need to know how the grid works. As you can see, there are a lot of commands here, each with a letter and a number. And the reason for that is because we have a grid. So this is the grid that I've made. It's a 12x9 grid. And basically it allows the user to see where the mouse would move. So if the user were to put H4, the mouse would move into the middle of the H4 grid. So this is mostly used for navigation because it would be too much of a hassle to move the mouse bit by bit across the screen. So this grid effectively allows the user to move cross screen with ease. Another thing to note is that because it's a grid-based system, it's impossible by default to get in between a grid. So if I were to want to click a button between H3 and I3, it would be impossible. Because if I would go to H3, it would go into the middle. If I would go to I3, it would go into the middle, and I wouldn't be able to reach in between. So that's why I have made commands here, mu, md, ml, mr. These move just enough to reach in between grids. So if I wanted to go in between H3 and H3, I3, I would move to H3 and I'll do mouse right, and the mouse moves just enough to go in between. So do not mess with these values unless you have to change the grid values too. And what I mean by that is probably the resolution. Again, I haven't checked if the resolution matters, but I have a feeling it does. Okay, another thing is that the sleep commands, try not to change this. This basically just adds a slight delay between commands. And the reason for that is because sometimes the mouse moves too fast and then things don't register properly. So just take note of that. Okay, the last thing to mention for the nerd shit is that, as you can see on the grid, the bottom row, you'll notice in the commands that the bottom row is slightly different. You see I9 compared to I8, there's a bunch of different stuff. And that's the same for everything in the bottom row. And the reason for that is because the bottom row is mainly only navigated to during deployment. And an issue I ran into when I was test running this during the early stages is that it took too many commands to deploy a operator. And what I meant by that is that a user would have to go to the grid, they would have to hold down the mouse button, then they would have to drag to another location, release, and then swipe in a direction. That's 5-6 commands. That's way too much. So I've actually made slight adjustments within certain commands to allow multi-functionality. So first, on the topic of deployment, every grid on the bottom row will make the mouse auto hold down. So unlike J8 here, where the mouse only moves there, for J9, the mouse will move to that location and then hold down the left click. So this is assuming they're hovering over an operator, and it will hold down the left click. Then let's say they want to deploy onto H4, so we're at I9, we're holding down. All we have to do is move to H4. It will hold and drag to H4, so we're still holding the operator. Next is the deployment direction. Instead of needing the user to release and then swipe, I've added the release before the swipe. So you can see here, key press left button basically releases and clicks again, and then it drags. So in short, deployment only really takes 3 commands unless you need to get into a tighter spot. So the 3 commands would be the grid of the operator, the grid of deployment, and then the swipe direction. I'm not going to go any further because this would take way too long. But if you have any other questions, do message me on Discord or join my Discord server in the description below. I'll be more than happy to help you out. Okay, so in terms of setting this up for a stream, what you'll need to do is you'll need to make sure that your game or Arknights on the emulator is running full screen on your main monitor. So this script moves the mouse on your main monitor. So it will be quite difficult to moderate your stream on OBS while this is running because people's commands are going to mess with your mouse. So if you're going to do this on a stream, I would highly recommend you moderate on a separate computer or separate device. Another thing is that you're going to have to add this grid overlay on top of your game. And you want to make sure that it's the exact same size as your game. If you're like me and want to add a command list on screen and your game is not going to be filling up the entire screen, just make sure that the grid is the same size as your game. And lastly, there is the list of commands here. You can ignore the stuff on the right. I kind of just yoinked this from my resources. This is more of like my own channel stuff on the right here. But all the commands are basically here. Again, if you run into any issues, message me on Discord. Don't be afraid. I won't bite. And I'm more than happy to help you out. Even if it's something really, really complicated that you want to change, I'll do my best to help you out. So yeah, enjoy, and I hope to see this in action on some of your channels.